What's up guys, my name is Ace, and one of the biggest questions I've been getting with the Blackout Beta is what are the best guns? What should I be looking for, and which guns should I be leaving behind? So today I'm going to be sharing my favorite guns, the guns that I really like to keep an eye out for, and my perfect combination of different weapons throughout a game of Blackout. Keep in mind, of course, this is based on the beta build of the game, and it is based on my personal playstyle and preferences. Feel free to disagree, and if you do, please let me know why in the comment section below. Maybe you'll even be able to sway my opinion on that. Now, I'm not going to be going into great detail of all the stats of all the weapons. That's something that I'm going to save for launch, and I'll be doing that with my gun guide series where I go over each individual damage range, rate of fire, time to kill, all of those aspects. In this video, it's going to be much more general just to help you out a little bit so you get a better grasp on the guns. So starting it off with shotguns, the shotguns in this game, in my opinion, are terrible. These are early game weapons where if you don't see any other guns on the ground, you've just landed, yes, pick that shotgun up because you need something to defend yourself with, but the moment you have some better guns to swap out for, get rid of those shotguns because they're not going to be helping you, especially mid to late game when people tend to start having armor, because even without armor, the shotguns aren't great, but once you throw armor into the mix, you don't even stand a chance. It's kind of a similar story with the pistols. I personally prefer a pistol over a shotgun in this game. But having said that, once you get the opportunity to pick up some ARs and SMGs and sniper rifles, you're probably going to want to get rid of those pistols. So those are what I consider to be the early game guns where if there's nothing else, yeah, grab it to defend yourself, but you're going to want to get rid of it the first opportunity you get. Now let's move on to SMGs. And my thoughts on SMGs are at the beginning of the game when you first land, these are dominant. These are what you want to get your hands on if possible. If you happen to see one, this is what you want to go for. Because at the beginning of the game, most of your gunfights are close quarters. Generally, people don't have armor on. And in these situations, this is where the SMGs are going to excel. Once the initial fights are over though, and you take control of the area that you're in and all the enemies are dead, and you're trying to loot things to get yourself set up for the mid game, generally I find myself dropping the SMG. The main reason for this is usually mid to late game. I find that a lot of the gunfights you end up getting in are going to be mid to somewhat longer ranges, and generally those ranges are going to be beyond the effective range of an SMG. A couple exceptions to this though are going to be with the SOG 9mm and the MX9. I really like those SMGs, even for mid-game situations, as long as I have something else for longer ranges like an assault rifle, a tactical rifle, or a sniper rifle. Those two SMGs I feel are versatile enough that I feel comfortable with them in the mid to later game situations. Whereas the other ones, the Cordite, the GKS, as well as the Spitfire, generally, I like to just get rid of those because in my mind, they're just not quite as versatile and I'd rather just have basically any one of the assault rifles in my hand. This brings us to the assault rifles, and these are typically the guns you want to be looking for those mid to late game situations because like I said earlier, you're generally going to find yourself in the mid to somewhat longer range gunfights. Now for these, I do want to go through them individually and share my thoughts on them because assault rifles, for me at least, are kind of the main guns for this game once you get past that early game situation. First up, we have the ICR. The ICR is one of my favorite assault rifles to take simply because it's extremely accurate, even over those longer ranges. So you can challenge people quite comfortably at super long ranges. Recoil is not a huge factor, and headshots with the ICR are quite effective. So if you run into somebody with armor somewhat close, if you aim for the head, you are rewarded for that with the ICR. Next up, we have the Vapor, and the Vapor isn't quite as good as the ICR at those longer ranges, but it is a little bit better than the ICR at the mid sort of ranges in my opinion. And therefore I would say the Vapor is a good choice, but I normally wouldn't want it to be my long range gun. So I will often pair this with a sniper rifle. I think it pairs really well with a sniper rifle, but I wouldn't really pair the Vapor with an SMG for instance. This brings us to the Maddox, which is actually quite similar to the Vapor. It kind of excels in those medium range situations. It's pretty good up close as well, but it struggles a bit on the longer ranges. As a result, once again, I don't really like using the Maddox as my long range gun, but it does pair very well with something like a sniper rifle, an auger, or even an ICR for instance. Now moving into our higher caliber assault rifles, first up we have the Rampart 17, and I really don't like the Rampart 17 in this game. There's just something about the recoil that it has. It bounces side to side really sporadically, and therefore even though it seems like it's supposed to be a gun that is good for long ranges, it isn't in my opinion. I really struggle to hit shots at longer ranges, and it doesn't really do too well up close either, and therefore I tend to avoid the Rampart if possible. And finally, for the assault rifle category, we have the KN57. This is one of my favorite guns in the game. It's very versatile. It's got a great time to kill. It feels like it punches through armor better than the other ones. I don't know if that's actually the case, but I just feel very, very comfortable with the KN-57 in this game, and it's one that I really actively keep an eye out for. So now this brings us to the tactical rifles in this game. This includes the 2 burst rifles, the ABR, as well as the Swordfish, and then the Auger. Now for both of the burst rifles, the ABR and the Swordfish, I don't like them. I love them in regular multiplayer, but when it comes to Blackout, I feel like the ranges are a bit too long for the amount of recoil that they have within each burst. And therefore, I find I'm often hitting my first bullet or 2, but then the 3rd or 4th one, they're always going up above the player's head, and it feels like I'm just wasting ammo shooting at them, and I'd be better off with any one of the other assault rifles, aside from maybe the Rampart, which, like I said, really not a fan of that gun. As a result, I really try to avoid picking up the ABR and the Swordfish. This one might also just be completely personal preference. Maybe you guys enjoy these, but for me, I always try to leave them on the ground. The Auger, on the other hand, this is currently at least my #1 favorite gun in Blackout. If you could give me the choice of one gun in the game, I would be choosing the Auger almost every single time. The Auger excels at those mid to late game situations where you're trying to pick people off that are standing behind trees at a bit of a range. It's still really decent up close, it punches through armor really, really easily, and it's just got an excellent time to kill with near perfect accuracy. So I'm always really keeping an active eye out for the Auger, and I actually keep an ear out for the Auger as well. If I hear somebody using the Auger, I will actively hunt them down, try to kill them so I can get their gun. This brings us to the LMG category, and currently we have 2 LMGs technically in the game. We've got the Titan as well as the Zweihander, or Zweiland? I don't know how to say it. We've got the Zombies gun. It's the dual barrel LMG, and let's start it off with that one. I think that's a very powerful LMG. I've gotten some pretty easy kills with it, but the one downside to this is you can't put attachments on it, so therefore it's fun to mess around with sometimes, but generally I don't actively seek that one out. As for the Titan, I'm still kind of torn on the Titan. Sometimes I feel it's great, other times I feel like that recoil is just a little bit too bouncy at those longer ranges, and therefore I'm kind of back and forth. Sometimes I'll take the Titan, oftentimes though I'll replace it with an assault rifle that I feel is a bit more versatile. As for the other regular Zombies guns, we're not talking about the ray gun, but I think there's a Galil, as well as I think it was a lever action rifle. I don't really have enough experience with those guns to give you guys an accurate review, so I am just going to leave them out of this. Of course though, let me know in the comment section below what you think of those 2 guns. I've used them both a couple times, and I'm just completely undecided at this point. And this brings us to the final category, which is the sniper rifles. Currently we have the Koshka as well as the Paladin. Now when it comes to sniper rifles, I generally try to get my hands on one, and I like to pair it with something like the Maddox or the Vapor, like I was saying earlier. Basically just something to support me in those close to mid-range situations, and then anything beyond mid-range, I try to use my sniper rifle for that. Now sniper rifles in Blackout have a lot of potential to be very, very powerful, especially if you manage to hit the headshots. But at the same time, if I'm being honest with myself, I feel like there's a lot of situations where I'm committing way too much to a sniper rifle, when I would be much better off just using an assault rifle against those guys. And therefore, sometimes it can be detrimental to me, but it's just so satisfying to get those one-shot kills with a sniper rifle, and this is why I tend to go for them. Of course, as far as sniper rifles go, this is going to come down to personal preference. For a lot of players out there, they just won't like the sniper rifles, they don't do well with them, and therefore they'll leave them on the ground, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me at least, I really try to pick one up if I get the opportunity. And that just leaves us with the special weapons, so the ray gun as well as the war machine. With these, of course, if I have the opportunity, I'm generally going to pick them up, more so just because they're rare and I want to use them and try them out. The problem with these though is the limited ammo that can't be replenished as far as I'm aware. So with the war machine you only get 6 shots, and I think the ray gun gets 20 or 25 shots, but you can burn through those very quickly and then you're stuck with just the one gun. So as a result, I often pick them up just so I can get one nice easy free kill, and then once I get that kill I like to swap it out so I don't end up getting myself stuck with just one gun. And with that, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today's video. As far as my favorite combinations, I generally like to have combinations that complement each other well. So I always try to have one gun that I use in the longer range situations. This will often be something like an ICR, a KN-57, an Auger, or either one of the sniper rifles. And then combined with that longer range weapon, I like to keep something that I'm more comfortable with in close to mid-range situations like an MX-9, a SOG 9mm, a Vapor, or a Maddox. Of course, those aren't the only combinations that I go with, and sometimes you don't really have much of a choice because it is a battle royale game and the loot is randomized, but those would be sort of my ideal setups. And with that, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what is your perfect setup for Blackout? If you had the choice, which 2 guns would you have in your inventory? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah.